Hi everyone, it's Gina K from Gina K Designs and your host of Stamp TV. And today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you how to create several different types of rainbow cards using several different techniques. Rainbow cards are bright and cheerful and can be used for a multitude of occasions. And many of these techniques can be done with the supplies you already have in your craft room. The first technique I want to show you is an ink blending technique. So I'm going to be using the water droplet stencil. Now I've put pixie spray on the back of this stencil so that this stencil will hold down all over the cardstock, but pixie spray leaves no residue, so it's a great way to adhere your stencils to your paper. I'm also going to use a little bit of the 1/2-inch purple tape to hold the stencil down onto my craft mat. Next, I'm going to take one of the life-changing brushes, and sometimes I wash my life-changing brushes, but depending on the color, sometimes I just rub it right off onto a piece of cardstock. Now for this technique, I recommend you starting with the yellow, and you're going to start blending in the center of your stencil, kind of doing a diagonal line. This is going to help you center your rainbow and make it even from top to bottom. Now I'm going to rub off that yellow color, and I'm going to get some tangerine twist ink, and I'm going to do the same thing right above that yellow line. I'm going to just dab a little bit of that off, and then I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to go back and forth and blend down into the yellow a little bit. I do want to leave a little bit of white space on this technique, so I'm not going to go from edge to edge. Now the next color I'm going to use is red velvet, and again I'm going to dab a little bit of that off, and then I'm going to blend that red velvet into the orange. And you can see I just needed a little bit of red. Now for my greens and blues, I'm going to use a different brush. This is a brush I had used earlier for some blue. And I'm going to start with some jelly bean green, and I'm going to blend that up into the yellow and across on a diagonal, leaving just enough room to add my final color. Now I'm going to rub off the excess green, and then I'm going to use some turquoise sea ink, and I'm going to finish off my rainbow by blending that turquoise sea into that jelly bean green. And again, leaving white space on the card. Now I'm pulling the purple tape off, and then I'm going to just peel that stencil right off. You can see there's no residue left behind, and I have a beautiful rainbow pattern. For the next step of this card, I'm going to use some of the Gina K Designs embossing and watermark ink, and I'm going to use a few images from the Elegant Asters card kit. I'm going to use the large flower, and then I'm going to use a couple of these leaf clusters. Now to emboss, I'm going to start with some embossing magic. So I want to rub this embossing magic pad over the surface of the cardstock. The embossing magic pad will get rid of any static that's on the surface of the card, and it also absorbs any oil from your hands or your fingertips, and it allows you to emboss only where you want to. So I'm going to ink up that aster flower, and I'm going to stamp it. And then I'm going to stamp the 2 clusters of leaves also on the cardstock before I use the embossing powder. Now once I finish stamping these, I have my embossing powder in a container. It makes it easy for me to sprinkle the embossing powder over the surface of my cardstock. So I'm going to bring that in, and I'm going to sprinkle this powder all over the images. I have about 3 or 4 containers of white embossing powder in there because it seems to be one of my go-to colors. Now I'm going to heat this embossing powder with my Wagner heat tool, and then I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending on these flowers and leaves. So once again, I'm going to use one of the life-changing brushes and a little bit of turquoise sea ink. And I'm going to ink up this brush, and then I'm going to just rub the excess off the bristles And gently in a circular pattern, I'm going to highlight that embossed image. And you can see how delicate that flower is when you just do a little bit of color over it using the Emboss Resist technique. Now once that's done, I'm going to use a smaller life-changing brush, and I'm going to use some of the Jelly Bean Green ink. And I wanted to use the same ink colors that are in the rainbow so that these flowers and leaves coordinate beautifully with that rainbow background. And you can see I'm just using a circular motion to highlight the delicate details of these leaf clusters. Now once these are all highlighted, it'll be time to die cut the flower and the leaves. And you can see how pretty those are. So now I'm going to use my Spellbinders Platinum machine and the coordinating dies that are in the Elegant Asters card kit to cut out this large flower and these two clusters of leaves. Now I like to do one cut. I like to have all the dies in place and then cut them out all at once. So the best way to do that is to line up that die and then to use some purple tape, and I like the 1/2-inch purple tape for this. So purple tape to hold the dies in place. And once the dies are held in place, then you don't have to worry that they're going to shift around when you put the top plate on or shift around when you roll it through the die cutting machine. And this purple tape is reusable, so you can keep these little pieces and use them over and over again to die cut. Now once that's all done, I'm going to run this through and I will have all of my die cut pieces. My next step is to cut out this wishes die, and I've already done that. I've cut 3 of them, and I've glued all 3 layers of the wishes die cuts using the Connect glue. And now I'm going to apply the wishes to the front of the card using the Connect glue. Now for this layout, I recommend that you start from the bottom up. If you start from the top, you may not have enough room to get your die in there, and you may not know exactly where to place the stamp. So the first thing that I'm going to place down on this card front is this wishes die cut. And by layering it, it becomes a real nice sturdy embellishment, and it has lots of depth and dimension. So I'm going to place this at the bottom of my card using the Connect glue. Now once that's in place, I'm going to choose one of the greetings from the Coordinating Wishes stamp set. And this die and the stamp set both come inside the Elegant Asters kit. Before I do that, I am going to add a little dot over the eye. Now instead of gluing all those 3 little dots that came out of the die, I decided to use an enamel dot, one of these little embellishments, and this way I've got that dimension that I need without struggling trying to get those 3 little dots all glued together. So I'm going to use one of the little words here from the Wishes mini set, and again that set comes inside the Elegant Asters card kit. And I'm going to stamp this with a little bit of black onyx ink. Whenever I use a stamp that I haven't used for a while or it's a new stamp, I like to stamp it on a scrap piece of paper first to make sure it's inking up well. Once I know that, then I can re-ink it and I can stamp it exactly where I want it on my card project. So now I have Loving Wishes on my card, and now it's time to add the flowers. So I'm going to use some of the Gina K Designs and ThermoWeb foam squares. Now these foam squares are really neat because they come out one at a time when you pull the little paper on the edge. And now I'm going to remove the little protective covers, and I'm going to place this flower over my Loving Wishes sentiment. And you can see that if you place the flower first, you may not have enough room for everything else if you put it down too low. So this allows you to build this design backwards. So now I'm going to apply the leaf clusters, and I'm going to stick those right onto the card. So the flowers popped up but the leaves are directly applied to the front of the card. And there's my second leaf cluster. And there is my first rainbow card all finished. Now for my second card project, I'm going to use some Zig Clean Color markers. Now these are watercolor markers, and I'm using some of the Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock. Now that first color is carmine red, and I'm just scribbling some of it onto the watercolor cardstock. The next color is called orange, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm just scribbling. I'm not worrying if the lines are even. I just want to make sure that I have enough color and enough colors to fill up the front of the paper, and that I go in rainbow order. So that color was called bright yellow, and now this one is called light green, and I'm going to scribble this the same way. My next color is turquoise green. It's a beautiful teal, and it looks just gorgeous when you use it as a watercolor too. It's one of my favorites. And then I'm going to use light violet to finish off my rainbow. Now rainbows look great with 5 colors, 6 colors. If you want to use 7 colors, you can add passionate pink at the end. Here I'm going to grab my distress sprayer, and it's filled with water. I spray it off once into my trash can all the time just to make sure it's not gloppy, and then I'm just adding water on top and letting those colors kind of blend together. Now I'm going to dry it quickly with my Wagner heat tool, but you see that little gloppy yellow on the side? I don't really like that, so what I did was I took a paper towel and just absorbed that right up. And then I'm going to finish drying that, and that's going to be ready for my focal image and greeting. Now, whenever you use watercolor paper and you heat it, or even when it just gets wet, it can curl a little bit or warp a little bit. So I use a little bit of extra tape on the back when I adhere it to my layering pieces and my card base, and that just flattens everything out. So now I'm going to adhere that onto my card base, and those panels are all ready for my focal image. And for my focal image, again I'm using the Elegant Asters card kit, and this time I emboss the butterfly image the same way I embossed those flowers at the beginning of the video. I'm using Tangerine Twist, which is a nice match for that orange Zig marker, and I'm going a little bit heavy into the center of the petals and then being a little more light-handed as I work my way out. And whenever you're doing the Emboss Resist technique, you should take a piece of paper towel and just rub all over the surface to remove any ink that's pooled on the top of your embossing powder. So here's my finished card project, and what I did was I cut out that butterfly and I popped it up with some foam squares, and then I used the Hello die from the Elegant Asters card kit for my greeting. Now for my next card, I'm going to start by adding a little bit of texture onto this white piece of cardstock. And again, I still have some of that pixie spray on that stencil, so it's stuck down real well, and I'm going to use some of the amalgam ink in the color Whisper. I'm going to blend this ink all over the surface of this stencil, and it's really a cool way to add some real light texture if you don't have the right embossing folder, or maybe you don't want any raised parts, maybe you don't have the perfect background stamp, but you still want something that's not very dramatic. This is the perfect color ink for that. So once I finish blending this, I'm going to gently pull the stencil off, and you'll see the beautiful gray background that this leaves behind. Now this is going to dry up even lighter than that, and you can see how pretty that is. There might be a little pink on the edge that was on the stencil, but I'll be cutting that off. Now for the rainbow part, I have a piece of Gina K Designs 120-pound cardstock. And I'm going to use a heart die, and this is one of the Hero Arts Infinity dies. And I just love these. There's about 1,000,000 hearts in that set, and you can always find the perfect one. I'm going to use some alcohol markers, and these are the Darice Studio 71 markers. So I'm going to start with the red marker, and this color is called Poppy Red. And I'm going to color, and you can see how nice this marker works. You can see how smooth it is. It's not streaky at all. So I'm coloring a blotch of red there, and then I'm going to use my heart as a guide to make sure that I have enough ink everywhere that I need it. The next color that I'm going to use is called Orange Peel. And again, you can see it's a nice, smooth, solid image. I really like these markers. The next color is called Canary. And then I'm going to hold that heart up again to make sure that I've colored enough. And I can see I still need to color a little bit more, so I'm going to go back with the orange peel and extend that out a little bit. And you can see even coloring over all of that, it just blends right together. So I'll tell you a little bit about these markers. I decided to try these because they're so economical, and I wanted to see if an economical alcohol marker would work really well. So far, I really like them. If you buy them singly, they're about $3 a marker, but if you buy the set of 48 like I bought, they're only about $1.50 a marker. This green is called Spearmint Green. And I will link underneath the video and also on my blog where you can get these markers if you're in the market for a less expensive alcohol marker. Now you can see here I'm checking, and I want to make sure I have a little bit of space left for my purple. So that blue is actually called Mint, and then this marker is called Lavender. So now I have plenty of ink there, and I can cut out my heart using the Infinity die and my Spellbinders Platinum machine. So now once I have this heart, I'm going to use some foam squares to pop it up. Isn't that pretty? So you can see I've layered that stenciled panel onto a black panel and then onto a white note card. And now I'm going to adhere that heart using some of the foam squares. Now for my greeting, I used the heart stamp set and the coordinating heart die. These are a mini set and a mini die, well, a mini set and a word die that you can get at Gina K Designs. And I layered the heart word 3 times. I cut it out, and then I used You Have My from the mini stamp set. For my final card, I'm going to do just some basic stamping, but I have a little tip. Now the stamp set that I'm going to use is the Tiny Textures stamp set. This is a great stamp set to do all kinds of background techniques, and the one I'm going to use is this kind of like a brush stroke. And I'm going to start, my little tip is to start right in the middle of your cardstock with your first color. This is going to allow you to space these evenly. So I'm going to start with the Wild Dandelion, and I'm going to just kind of eyeball it into the center of the card. Now if you want to mark it with a small pencil line, you can do that and erase it afterwards. But as long as it's pretty close to the center, you should be in good shape. Now I'm going to use my tidy towel to clean that. And now I can work from the middle up and the middle down. So my next color is going to be the Tangerine Twist, and I'm going to ink up my stamp with that, and I'm going to stamp that on top of that yellow brush stroke. And this is a really quick and easy technique, and don't limit yourself to just rainbows with this. You can do all kinds of pastel combinations and then stamp solid images on top, and it makes just such a beautiful background. So now I'm using red velvet, and if you don't have red velvet, you can use red hot or cherry red or any of the other reds that you have in your collection. Now I'm going to start working my way down, and the next color is Lucky Clover. I've been using a lot of Jelly Bean Green, but Lucky Clover is such a fun green too, and I never give it enough attention, so I'm going to use this one for my rainbow. It's such a great bright green. And then I'm going to finish up my rainbow with some turquoise sea. And you can see, because I started in the middle, I could kind of judge where to place my second image, and then that allowed me even spacing from top to bottom. So there is my rainbow. So now that's mounted onto a black panel, and I'm going to use the Follow Your Dreams, They Know the Way greeting. And here I cut this out, I stamped it and I cut it out using the Small Circles by Gina Designs and Thermo Web. It's got that nice double stitched edge. I think this would be a great graduation card. Rainbow cards are perfect for spring and summer cards and are a bright, fun way to say hello, happy birthday, thanks for all you do, and thinking of you. I sure hope you've enjoyed today's Stamp TV video, and I hope you'll give some of these rainbow techniques a try. I've linked a couple of other videos at the end that you might like, and don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the notification bell on my channel so you never miss a new video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.